I never thought running away could feel like coming home. But when you're desperate, you don't ask questions, you just run. That's how I met him, Emeka. The man I thought would save me from everything. The sky was heavy with the threat of rain as I stood outside the small market, clutching my thin bag close. Amaka's heart raced like a bird trapped in a cage, fluttering wildly but powerless to fly away. I had left everything behind: my family, my old life, and the secrets that whispered behind closed doors. I didn't look back, not even once. It was in that moment, while the cold wind tugged at my scarf, that Emeka appeared. Tall. Quiet. His eyes held stories, but he didn't tell them easily. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked gently, breaking the silence that had wrapped around me like a blanket I could not shed. I shook my head, afraid to speak. Words stuck in my throat. He smiled, a small, knowing smile. "My name is Emeka," he said, extending a hand. I hesitated, then took it. "Amaka," I whispered. From that day on, Emeka became my anchor. The safe place I had been searching for in a sea of storms. We met often, sometimes in the crowded markets, other times at the quiet corner cafe where no one asked questions. He listened when I talked about my dreams, about leaving the past behind, about finding peace. He never judged. He was my plan. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of orange and purple, Emeka took my hand in his. "Amaka," he said softly, "marry me." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that settled deep in my bones. I looked into his eyes and for the first time, felt hope. "I will," I whispered back. I thought marriage would be my fresh start. But sometimes, the thing you run toward turns out to be the thing you need to run from. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft orange hues, we sat on a wooden bench outside the cafe. Emeka turned to me, his voice calm but firm. "Why do you look so tired, Amaka? You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." I looked away, afraid the truth would spill from my lips. "I am tired. But there's nothing I can do." He waited. Finally, I took a deep breath. I left because my past wasn't safe. I needed to get away. Somewhere new. His eyes softened. "And do you think this new place will keep you safe?" I didn't answer. Could it? Days passed, and Emeka's presence became a quiet light in my dark world. He offered me a place to stay, simple, but clean and warm. One evening, as we sat eating dinner, he asked, "Amaka, what do you want for your life?" I looked down at my plate, my fingers tracing the edge of the bowl. "Peace. A fresh start." He nodded. "Then you should marry me." I blinked, surprised. "Marry you?" I repeated, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes. Marry me. So you can have that fresh start. No more running." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him I wasn't ready, that my heart was still broken. But something about his quiet strength made me want to believe in the possibility of a better life. And so, I said yes. Weeks turned into months. The wedding was small, just with close friends and neighbors. But in my heart, it felt like a grand celebration, a new beginning. At first, everything was perfect. Emeka was kind, patient, and gentle. I believed I had finally found the safety I'd longed for. But beneath the calm surface, a storm was quietly gathering. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him I wasn't ready and wasn't sure if I could trust anyone again. But the tiredness in my bones, the loneliness in my heart, made my voice falter. I looked up at Emeka, searching his face for a sign that this was more than just words. His eyes were steady, serious. "Amaka," he said softly, "you don't have to run anymore. You can stay with me." The room felt smaller, warmer. My heart beat so fast I thought it might break free from my chest. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered a warning. Could this be a fresh start? Or just another trap? That night, lying on the thin mattress in his small room, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds outside, the distant hum of voices, the rustling of leaves in the breeze. I wanted to believe in Emeka. I wanted to believe in hope. But the past was never far behind. It waited for me like a shadow, ready to pull me back. A few days later, Emeka brought a small ring wrapped in a piece of cloth. "I don't have much," he said, "but I want you to have this. For the promise of tomorrow." I looked at the ring, simple but shining faintly in the dim light. I held it in my palm and felt the weight of a choice, between running away and standing still, between fear and hope. Emeka smiled. "Say yes, Amaka." I took a deep breath and whispered, "Yes." The night air was cool as I stepped outside his room, clutching the ring tight. For the first time in a long time, I dared to imagine a future. But little did I know that the man who promised me safety would soon become my worst mistake. The night air was cool as I stepped outside his room, clutching the ring tight. For the first time in a long time, I dared to hope. Days turned into weeks. Our small life together was quiet, filled with simple routines, sharing meals, laughter over small jokes, and evenings spent talking under the dim light of a single bulb. Emeka was patient with me, never pushing when I pulled away. But sometimes, in the way he looked at me like he could see the storms hidden beneath my calm, something unsettled me. One evening, as the sky darkened and the world hushed, I found courage to ask, "Emeka, why do you want to marry me?" He looked surprised, then smiled gently. "Because you deserve to be loved without fear. Because I want to be the one to hold your hand when the past tries to come back." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in us. But a small part of me whispered caution. Because running from my past wasn't the same as escaping it. And sometimes, the worst mistakes hide behind the best intentions. The mornings after our quiet nights together always felt like a small victory. Light seeped softly through the curtains, and for a moment, I believed in the new life I was building with Emeka. But some mornings, the shadows clung longer, reminding me that peace was still fragile. One such morning, Emeka was already awake when I opened my eyes. He sat by the small window, staring out but not really seeing. "Good morning," I whispered, trying to sound cheerful. He turned and smiled, but there was a tiredness in his eyes. "Morning, Amaka. Sleep well?" I nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." He gestured for me to sit beside him. "I want to talk about something." My heart tightened. His tone was serious but kind. I braced myself. "What is it?" I asked. Emeka hesitated. "I know you want a fresh start, but sometimes the past, it has a way of catching up. Not just for you, for me too." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He sighed deeply. "There are things I haven't told you. Things I hoped would stay buried." My throat went dry. I wanted to ask more, but the fear stopped me. "Like what?" I managed to say. He looked me straight in the eyes. "I've made mistakes, Amaka. Things I'm not proud of. But I want you to know everything before we go further." I swallowed hard, unsure if I was ready to hear his truth. "Please," he said softly. "I owe you that much." For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then he began. "I was young, like you," Emeka started, "when I got involved with people who promised quick money, easy life. I thought I could control it. I thought it wouldn't touch the man I wanted to be." He paused, biting his lip. "But it did. I lost myself. I lost a lot." My mind raced. What had he done? Was this the nightmare waiting in the wings? "Did you hurt anyone?" I whispered. He nodded slowly. "I was careless. I paid the price. But I've been trying to make things right ever since." I wanted to believe him. To trust him. But the silence that followed felt heavier than the secrets. Later that day, I sat alone, turning his words over and over. How much of the past was safe to share? How much would change us? And in the back of my mind, a cold thought whispered. Was I trading one nightmare for another? The days that followed were a strange mix of hope and doubt. Emeka was kind, but sometimes his phone would ring, and he'd quickly move to the other room, his face unreadable. One afternoon, curiosity overcame me. I picked up the phone left on the table, only to see messages from unknown numbers. Words like meeting and pay up made my stomach knot. When Emeka returned, I didn't know how to hide my fear. "Who were you talking to?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Old business. Nothing for you to worry about." But I did worry. Because escaping the past was proving harder than I thought. That night, under the faint light of a single candle, I asked the question I was afraid to voice. "Emeka, who are you really?" He looked at me with tired eyes, and for a moment, the walls he built between us seemed to crack. "I'm a man trying to fix his mistakes," he said simply. "But can we fix them together?" I wanted to believe we could. "For what?" I whispered, heart pounding. "For trust," Emeka said. "For honesty between us." He took a deep breath, then began. "A few years ago, before I met you, I made some choices I regret. I was desperate, trying to survive in ways I shouldn't have." His hands trembled slightly, something I hadn't seen before. "I was involved with people who weren't good for me. People who wanted to pull me down. I tried to get out, but it wasn't easy." I watched him carefully. His voice was low but steady. "Amaka, I never told you because I wanted to protect you. But I see now that running from your past and hiding mine won't help us." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Do they still threaten you?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Emeka shook his head slowly. "No. I cut ties. But sometimes, the past leaves scars that don't fade." Silence stretched between us. The air felt heavier, charged with things unsaid. I wanted to reach out, but the wall I'd built inside me held strong. "How can I believe you?" I finally asked, voice shaking. He looked down, then met my eyes again. "Because I'm standing here, telling you everything. Because I want to build something real, with no secrets." For a long time I sat there, wrestling with my own ghosts. Could I trust this man who promised safety but carried shadows like me? Could I risk everything on a new beginning that felt so fragile? Later that day, Emeka took me to a small market square bustling with life. As he smiled at the vendors and greeted familiar faces, I saw a side of him I hadn't known, roots and stories tangled deep beneath his calm exterior. Maybe, just maybe, running from the past was easier when you had someone beside you willing to face it. But the past has a way of catching up. And sometimes, the biggest mistake is believing it won't. We stopped by a stall selling fresh oranges. Emeka picked one and handed it to me. "Here," he said. "Try it." I peeled the orange slowly. The sweet scent filled the air. As I bit into the juicy fruit, I realized that sometimes, healing started with small things, moments like this, simple and real. But just as I began to believe in the possibility of a new life, a shadow slipped through the sunlight. That evening, as we walked back home, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "He's not who you think he is." I froze. Emeka noticed. "What is it?" I showed him the message. His face darkened, eyes narrowing. "We need to be careful," he said quietly. That night, lying awake beside him, I felt the weight of the past pressing down again. I wanted to believe that Emeka was my escape, but the warning in that message was clear. The nightmare I was running from might not be over, it might only be beginning. The message haunted me long after my phone went silent. Those 4 words, "he's not who you think he is," echoed in my mind like a warning bell. I wanted to believe Emeka. I wanted to believe in the quiet life we were trying to build together. But doubt had settled inside me like an unwanted guest. The next morning, I found him sitting at the small kitchen table, reading the newspaper with the same calm I had come to rely on. "Emeka," I said slowly, "there's something I have to ask." He looked up, eyes steady. "Who were those people you said you cut ties with? The ones from your past?" He paused, folding the paper. "They were business partners," he said finally. "People I trusted, but who turned out to be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" I pressed. Emeka sighed. "They dealt with things I wanted no part of, things I regret getting close to." I nodded, biting back the urge to ask more. "Did any of them try to come after you? After us?" He met my gaze. "No. Not yet. But that's why we have to be careful." Days passed with a heavy silence between us, the unsaid words thickening the air. One evening, as the sky darkened and the street lamps flickered on, Emeka sat me down. "Amaka," he began, "there's something else." My heart thudded. "What is it?" He took a breath. "I didn't tell you everything about my past because I was afraid it would push you away." I waited. "There's someone from back then. Someone who's been watching." Before I could respond, the sound of a motorbike stopped outside our gate. Emeka's eyes sharpened. "Stay inside." "I'll check." "There's someone." "From back then," Emeka said, voice low, "who still watches me. Someone I tried to leave behind." I swallowed hard. "Who?" He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. "A man named Obina. He's dangerous, not just to me, but to anyone close." My mind raced. "Why haven't you told me this before?" "Because I wanted to protect you," he said. "I thought I could handle it alone." I reached out, taking his hand. "We're supposed to face things together." Emeka nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. That night, I lay awake, thoughts spinning. I had married a man trying to escape his own shadows, just like me. Was my new life nothing more than a different kind of trap? The past was closing in, and I wasn't sure we could outrun it together. The days that followed were tense, wrapped in a quiet fear neither of us dared to speak aloud. Emeka moved carefully, eyes always scanning, his smile never quite reaching his lips. I watched him, wondering how much danger we really faced, and how deep I was already in. One evening, as the sun slipped behind the clouds and a soft rain began to fall, Emeka invited me to sit with him on the small veranda outside his home. The scent of wet earth filled the air. "I want you to know something," he said, voice low but steady. "No matter what happens, I'm not going to let your past, or mine, destroy what we have." I looked into his eyes and saw a flicker of hope. But what if it's already too late? He took my hands in his. It's never too late to fight for what matters. Just then, a sharp sound broke the quiet, the screech of tires, a sudden shout. I stood up, heart pounding. Emika's eyes darkened. Stay here. Moments later, I heard voices outside, rough voices filled with anger and menace. Emika stepped out, calm but firm. Obinna, he said quietly. The man stepped forward, face twisted with hatred. You thought you could leave me behind? Obinna spat. Emika squared his shoulders. I'm not afraid of you. The tension was thick, like the rain soaking the earth around us. Suddenly, Obinna lunged. Emika caught him, the struggle fierce but brief. When it was over, Emika turned to me, breathing hard but steady. Your past may have brought us here, he said softly, but I'm not going anywhere. In that moment, I realized something important. Running wasn't enough. Facing the past, together, was the only way forward.